Okay, everyone. So I would like to start the April 14th meeting at 7:03. And if we could, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Let's go to the approval of the agenda. I do not believe we're changing anything, just changing documents. Dr. Willett?
Right. Yep. Your screen will just mess up one more time, hopefully. This will be it. This will be it. And there we go.
Perfect. We'll move to the approval of minutes. I will entertain a motion to approve the March 24th minutes.
Jacob Mari, I move that we approve the March 24th minutes.
Madhu Randu-Chantala, second.
Okay, any discussion? Does anyone have anything to say? At this point, everyone's hand is still up. So if you have something, just give me a visual that you have something to correct. And if not, let's go ahead and we will do a roll call vote. All those in favor can say aye, and any opposed can say nay, or you can abstain. Let's go to Dana.
Aye.
Griffin?
Aye.
Lord?
Aye.
Jacob?
Aye.
Rini?
Aye.
Madhu?
Aye.
And Sophia?
Aye.
Okay, I'm an aye as well. Therefore, this passes unanimously. We will go to the public participation, which is a 2-minute time limit. We will have Jacob, because Tony did not log on, right? Just before I make sure, because I'm assuming that because he's still abroad. So we'll have Jacob keep the time, and he will give you a visual, and he will let you know when you have 30 seconds left, and he will also vocally tell you. If you could please list your name and your address. And at this point of time, the board members can respond to any questions or comments during the points of information. At this time, I will open up to the public. If you could raise your hand. Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, we will move on to correspondence, which Jacob, I'm assuming you have them, or you did them if Tony did not.
Yep. I got a report right here.
Perfect. Thank you, Jacob.
Okay, it's not very long today. So we got an email requesting that the board remove fluoride from the school's drinking water. We got a requesting that the author's daughter be exempt from taking the test, assuming it's the SBAC test. It didn't say in the email. Email with an excerpt that the author believes may be helpful for advancing equity in the school district. An email asking if the curriculum contains material covering the Holocaust. An email sharing a link to an event about teacher diversity and student success. And an email expressing dismay over the April 16th being a remote learning day. The author asks why the vaccination clinic can't be scheduled over spring break to alleviate this problem, and is worried about the costs remote learning days impose on working parents. That's all I have, and I'll send that to Lisa after the meeting.
Okay, thank you, Jacob, for doing that. At this point, I will open up the points of information for any board member. If you want to raise your hand or go through. Dr. Will, I don't know if you have anything on this point too to throw in there.
No.
Okay. Okay, board members, you're good? Okay, let's continue on. We will go to the student representatives report for Alexandra Acosta and Samar.
Hi everyone. So we do have a lot today. So let me start by saying the THS drama department is putting together a virtual show called The Battle of the Broadway Bests. Tickets are on sale for $10 for the show, which will be both virtually May 1st and May 8th. And then this Tuesday, we student council had this thing where we gave seniors ice cream because they won the food drive, the Thanksgiving food drive. So they got to pick from a lot of ice cream during the end of the day, and they were pretty happy about that. And then Mr. Poland has sent out a lot of information about end of the year activities for seniors and invited any senior who wanted to take part in the planning for graduation.
And then this past week, Student Council held its Spirit Week. On Friday, we wore red to support autism acceptance, and we raised quite a bit of money. We're not quite sure on the specific amount yet, but we raised quite a bit of money to donate to the Autism Self-Advocacy Network. On Saturday, May 1st, NHS is hosting its annual blood drive, which will be held at St. Matthew's rather than at the school this year. And it's going to be open to the public. So if anyone's willing and able to come donate, that'd be really appreciated. And then I think the last thing we have is that NHS welcomed its new junior members to the club this week. We're still working out the logistics of their induction ceremony. We don't know if it's going to be in person or virtual yet, but for now, we're excited to have them participating in the club. I think that's it.
That's excellent. Can you just repeat the blood drive date?
So it's on Saturday, May 1st at St. Matthew's. I think it's from 9 to 2, if I'm correct, but I'll check on that. And then
Okay. Thank you, ladies, very much. It sounds like there are a lot of things going on. And also, I saw something for the Battle of the Band Broadway. I saw that. I'm not sure if Dr. Willett, did you post something on the superintendent's page? I saw it somewhere.
We did. We put a lot of info out, but I don't remember Battle of the Bands.
No, I just automatically said Battle of the Bands, but it's Battle of Broadways with the.
Oh,
it's-
okay.
You're so used to just saying
That's sort of
Battle
the
of the Bands. No, I saw it advertised somewhere, and I think that would be great to get that out too for the
Sure.
community, along with the blood drive and things. That would be fantastic. Thank you, ladies, so much for your help on that. Enjoy your week. Let's go to the superintendent's report. So, Dr. Willett, if you could start off with the monthly financial report.
Yep. So as usual, as you're all expecting the first meeting of the month, we will typically have the monthly financial report, and this month is no different. Monthly financial report is submitted by the business manager, Mark McLaughlin. And this month we end with about $1,049,057, or 2.62% of the budget. At this point in the year, we are starting to talk, and we will in the next agenda item talk about where we think we might be towards the end of the year now. But I'll go over some of the highlights of this particular month's budget, and then open the floor, obviously. So just a couple of highlights for this particular month that you might notice in the page here for March. And keep in mind, we are always reporting out on the previous month. So in the beginning of April, we were looking at March and so on. Salaries are currently under budget. Additional teachers and paras, we weren't able to fill certain jobs during this year. So that is something that we do expect to continue that way as we get to the end, and hopefully the end of the pandemic year, we will not have that problem. But there were some shortages staff-wise this year, people just not necessarily wanting to jump into that environment at this time. The current available balance is $294,000. The balance will continue to fluctuate a bit up and down. We do have now remote learning assistant educators that are helping. We also do have some impacts coming with respect to some of the bargaining units. So we do expect there to be impacts on that line, but again, we'll probably end with some funds available. Substitute available balance is $118,000 under budget. It dropped about $16,000 between last month and this month, and we've temporarily, added on to the, a temporary assistant principal as we are completing the assistant principal search, and that has reduced the balance. Overtime expenses cannot be encumbered, and they're currently under budget by about $48,000. That number is down by about $15,000 from last month. Stipends are currently under budget. This year, pay to play has been reduced for fall and winter sports from 200 to 100, but they're back to 200 now because we do have a full schedule for spring sports. And so you have to keep in mind that similar to previous years, the stipends are encumbered, but they're not fully collected. And so usually at this point, especially for the spring, and that process is completing. So as the pay to play funds are collected, the available balance will be adjusted accordingly. It will slowly come into line, but we do expect to be probably a deficit for this year. Health insurance, severance, employee benefits are collectively 104,000 under budget, down 19,000 from last month. Newly hired employees and retired employees, FICA, medical, Medicaid, Social Security, and those who retired since the beginning of the year can change these balances. So the available balance is 125,000 under budget. This line will remain under budget until we completely fill out the position. So it'll probably be a bit under budget this year. Retirement, course reimbursement, unemployment expenses are also under budget for March. There's an increase in unemployment expenses due to the coronavirus. Unemployment is currently over budget by 49,000. Degree changes are currently under by about 34, but we do expect to have some course reimbursements and degree changes submitted as we get towards the end of the year and people complete their programs. Benefits consultants and workers' comp remains right about on target. Legal, audit, and technical services are all collectively under budget by about 32,000. This number is down by about 2,000 from last month. The district has completed negotiations with the para bargaining unit, and secretary negotiations are underway. And we do expect there to be some incurred expenditures for that. All repairs, maintenance, custodial, equipment expenses, cleaning, and technical expenses will continue to be expended, as you might imagine, throughout the rest of the year. Maintenance and custodial expenses are typically cyclical, and so it is kind of what we would expect for now. There's been an increase in expenses a bit due to COVID-19, which is expected. Student transportation is under budget by about 11,000. Barring any major issues between now and the end of the year, transportation should level out, but currently we're under by about 11,000. Special education tuitions are now under budget as we've reached this nine-month point. I'm expecting this account to have some more fluctuations, usually towards the end of the year. It'll bump up or down a bit, so we just have to watch that line. The use of state troopers and public safety and things like that for public events has obviously during the pandemic been minimal, so that line is under by 84. Energy expenses were all transferred to the UISF fund from the beginning, as you know. Textbooks are now at the point of being fully encumbered. They're currently over budget by 8, and you may recall over the last few months those were greatly under, and now we're starting to spend all that as we've made the selections. So it's currently over by about 8K in the curriculum supervisors and coordinators will be reviewing that. Instructional supplies, miscellaneous, general supplies are on target. New instructional equipment line is over by about 34 due to the additional encumbrances for some of these computers. It's down from about 154 from last month. The overage, as you recall, was due to the expenditures that eventually the ERF's transfer would mitigate. That's about it for now, but if you have any questions, I can try to answer them or take them down and respond, in the next meeting or personally too.
Okay, at this time, I'll open up to board members, and we'll start with Jacob.
Thanks, Dr. Willett. I got one question about that equipment instructional new line, object 730. I think you touched on it a little bit, how it's a big change in the positive direction from last month. Did you say that was because funds are being transferred to the ERF? Because we didn't make that transfer yet, did we? I was just kind of curious what the fluctuation was.
Yeah, that if I'm looking at my notes about a lot of the fluctuation that occurred in that line was because we had expended it or overexpended it, and then we were going to get ERF money back in. And so that was the major reason for the fluctuation in that line. And there are other associated peripherals and things like that too. So that 34K is roughly due to some of these computer items.
Okay. So that might be just a little bit ahead of the ERF, but it's going to be all worked out.
Yeah, it should.
And my other quick question was the course reimbursement. There's a deadline, right, to apply for that, for course reimbursement, is there?
Off the top of my head, I don't know what it is. I mean, certainly we need it so that we're not riding right against the edge of the fiscal year because we have to have, we have to close the books. But I think they have through May.
Okay. I was just kind of curious, and we'll see. We can have a clear picture about what that line will be. That's it.
Thank you, Jacob. Let's go to Plord.
I had a question, and Dr. Willett, I feel like you've answered this before, but maybe you can refresh my memory. The professional education services line item is over. Is that what's coming out of eventually coming out of the COVID relief fund, or am I making that up?
No, I think some of that also gets backfilled when we get the excess cost in May.
Okay, that was
So, yeah, I believe, so we'll see some of that stabilize out.
it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and just as a reminder to all board members, we do get money, our second, there's 2 amounts provided to the district from the state. One is in February, one is in May. And some of those items get backfilled and restabilized after the payment in May from the state.
Okay, any other board members at this time? If not, we will jump into the end of the year document, which
Okay.
board members, there was a new one. I printed it out. That's all I got.
So if you remember, and this is updated now, so this document tends to go through some fluctuations. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about where we are at the moment with it. But as a refresher, you may remember last year we had a series, about 3 or so of these end of year phase documents. Typically there's an April one, a May one, a June one, and sometimes there's some iterations in there. So the design and the purpose of these end of year documents is to lay out what the landscape looks like for the Board of Ed with respect to where the budget could end, some expenditures that can provide investments in fiscal year 22 and thus offset the budget impact. As you know, the Board of Education received a 2.0% increase from the town council, or it approved the 2.0. And so there are some adjustments that needed to be made in the board budget. So the phase documents put that information out there, put what the budget number will be, and talk a little bit about what some investments in the fiscal year 22 could be, so that we can offset the reduction. Also, there are a series of suggested items as end of year expenditures that don't necessarily have an impact on fiscal year 22 budget, but they can offset future budgets by the nature of what they are. For instance, the scoreboard is blowing up at the high school, so replacing it now means we don't have to replace it 2 years from now, et cetera. So each of these things does tend to offset a budget somewhere in the future, but it, the ones that will most immediately do that are actually labeled such as, as an investment in fiscal year 22. And finally, the document ends with a summary of where funds that are remaining potentially at the end of the year may be allocated by the board, providing a something to chew on, so to speak, for the board to think about as we head towards the end of the year. So this is the first document. One thing to be keeping in mind is that it does fluctuate from here. So this is not going to be the final document, and these numbers, with the exception of section 1, which is what the budget was set to be, many of these other numbers will fluctuate as we get closer to the end of the year. So just keep that in mind, and the most accurate of these tends to be the one that we look at in June, or the ones that we look at in June as we're making the final determinations. So this is going to vary a little bit from the one that was in the document. Friday, we put out the Board of Ed agenda, and so there's been, a series of days since then, and things have moved forward as they sometimes do. So this is an updated version of that. Some of it's the same, some of it's different, but the sections and the concept will be the same. So taking a look at section 1 here, the Board of Ed budget for fiscal year 21 was $40,017,290. Superintendent's proposed budget was $41,452,479, $1.4 million increase. It was a 3.5 budget. The Board of Education budget that you voted to adopt was $41,293,289, a $1.2 million budget and a 3.19% increase. It was a reduction of about $159 from the superintendent's proposed budget. The town council allocation for the board was a 2% budget, which is an $800,345 increase for a budget of $40,817,635. And so this is our now Board of Education budget as part of the town budget to be presented at in May for a referendum. So this is the figure that we must reduce, $474,000 rounded. So you'll notice that the objective in the offsets, the fiscal year investments for 22, the main objective is to try to reach this amount and hopefully reach it without having to impact any staff. Currently, we've reached to about 406,000. We have about 70,000 to go. And I continue to work on this with the staff, business manager, and of course, I'm open to whatever some suggestions might be as well as we work our way towards that. All thoughts are welcome. Section 2 gives a rundown of what the budget number is. You'll notice that matches up with the end of year March number. We anticipate an excess cost payment of about $150,000, and we anticipate a CREC reimbursement as we provided our own services. CREC is going to reimburse us for some services that we did not use through Capital Region Education Council, which is one of the area. It's basically it provides programming for schools, and each of the regions of Connecticut has one. Ours in that particular area is called CREC, and there's another one called EastCon, another one called ACES. This is CREC that we work with a lot. So CREC is going to reimburse us about $64,000. We do have a payment to make to the paraprofessional bargaining unit. It's a retroactive payment due to the settlement. That's about $88,000 that was not budgeted for. We did budget for a certain amount of an increase, and this is the differential between what we budgeted and what ultimately got settled. It was about $88,000. So you'll notice that here's the budget, and here are things that contribute to it, raise it, and here are things that are going to need to be taken away from it. And that sets the stage of what our number is to work with for this particular period of time at this particular snapshot of time. So food services, which I'll go into a little bit more in a few minutes. Food services, as has been talked about in FFC and alluded to, and not just in our area, but across the entire state and really across the nation. Food service programs have lost money this year just simply because the pandemic resulted in just less revenue opportunities, really, is the bottom line for it. We did receive USDA funding for each lunch, but fewer lunches were overall purchased. So the fiscal impact on our food service program is significant. They are a self-funding program typically. I don't think in my tenure here we have ever used any operating budgets money for food services, but like most other places, the pandemic has created a situation where they're in a deficit. So this would be using funds to shore up that deficit. So we would use about $126,800 to do that. And then we would use the remaining funds from ESSER 2, which is the grant that we're completing, or I'm completing in the next 2 days, really. I've been working on it. I hope to have it completed by Friday. And the remaining 61 roughly thousand of the ESSER 2 funds would then be applied towards food service. And that should shore up the about 187,000 to 188,000 shortfall. TIS concrete work is the work that we pledged to the council or to the town that we would make, and that takes away a capital budget item off the town side. So that was decided a little earlier in this year. So the ending total here would be $1,018,299. And so you'll notice now using that figure, which takes from the March end of month figure, factors in some of the things that we need to consider. And so this is working with this figure, where we start to approach our pre-investments and potential end of year expenditures. So section 3 is the potential end of year expenditures, and they are not the investments. These are things that are basically one-timers. We purchase them out of end of year funds. They do have a good potential for offsetting future budgets and capital impacts, but it's not necessarily going to take away from fiscal year 22. So this won't help us mitigate fiscal year 22, but it will help us handle things we have to handle and potentially take a chunk out of future budgets, some of them, not all of them. So the adopted math program, for instance, that's not something that's going to take away from future budgets, but it allows us at the end of the year to do a much better option for training staff. Typically during a normal year, we would have to use substitutes to pull staff out of classrooms and give them their trainings. Typically that means teachers are out of classrooms. Takes a lot more time. You can't do it in a concentrated amount of time because you can't impact a class that way. So sometimes at the end of the year, we have funds and we can do something like this, which is create a week or a week and a half or two of concentrated time where we bring in the staff and we train them in that 1 week with the program. That way they can start the year with the training and we're not training them as we go along in the year. And so it's a much better way to do it if you have the funds to do that. We don't always have the funds to do that, but when we have an end of year opportunity like this, that's a good use of it. So that's in here as a potential expenditure that can help us have a much better and smoother implementation of the math program and the training. So we're not doing it while we're going through the year. SEL is Social Emotional Learning Ruler Program. It's a Yale Emotional Intelligence Program. Researchers like Brackett, a well-researched program has been developed and there's cost, obviously. This would allow us to actually send teams from every single school and there's a district leadership group. So it's a rare opportunity that we would have to do such a thing. These are remote versions of these now, so they're cheaper than they normally would have been. That cost would have been 2 to 3 times higher if it were the in-person program. So we have an opportunity to train the core teams in every single school plus the district admin in this and do it in one fell swoop right now so that we can really ramp up our implementation, which otherwise the training would have to be done much more piecemeal, take a lot longer. So we talked about this in the curriculum committee and it's come up in other areas. It's included here because this is an opportunity to get this training really completed so that we're in a very good place for implementation of the Yale program, Emotional Intelligence Program and the Ruler program. The graduation, we are going to need to restructure graduation. We did get the guidance from the state. A lot of things, need to do a little differently. Looked at the sector rules. We're currently looking for an opportunity, a venue, a place to be able to do graduation to provide the maximum number of people to attend. And so at this point, we've been trying to figure that out with respect to our own facilities and our own grounds. The goal is to try to get 5 to 6 tickets per family so that a family can cohort. We haven't been able to get that math that high with most of our grounds because we're just not set up that way. We do right now have we're making an effort to secure a Dunkin' Donuts Stadium, which is also known as Yard Goat Stadium. So we're currently in the process of trying to make that final. And, that would allow us to have a large number of family members in an open air, open structure. And so the June 18th graduation date is obviously our main date. There would be a 21st rain date. And so this would require an additional expense. THS projects like the scoreboard, that was something I mentioned that can offset a future budget. It's not going to offset fiscal year 22 because it wasn't in it. Sometimes it's a capital item. But this would take away from the need to do it in the future, and the scoreboard is fizzling out. So it's something we can take care of. And it's got some tolerable elements, but it's on its way to a happier place, I'm told. So it's something that we would need to address. in the fairly near future anyway, and that would take it away. BGP Skylift, as we're looking and walking through the building, most of you have gone through BGP right now. You'll notice that it's got much higher ceilings than our predecessor building. And so the Skylift, you can stand on it and it allows you to, rise up to change light fixtures, fix ceiling tiles, do all the things that we're going to need to do with a building that has a much higher ceiling in many places. And so it's an important tool, and we have opportunity to do that through the end of year funds. Similar things like an exterior shed. We need a truck to load and take care of the move and things like that. Moving labor. There's a floor machine that is dying, and so this would be a good opportunity to take care of that. We could take care of athletic uniforms so they wouldn't have to be done for the next few years. There are some that are quite old. And, we didn't necessarily want to push the budget up past 4%, but here's an opportunity to do it with end of year funds so that we don't necessarily have to put them in the, in the budgets the way we would have otherwise. We always do try to do curriculum work at the end of a year like this. It means less subs and people being pulled out of class. So if we can do it during this summer period, it is very useful to do that. And we have a lot of curriculum teams ready to go to continue to update it. We are having more overtime and that'll eat in. So it's just something that if we have the option to do it, it's going to mean that we'll have nicer grounds and we'll be able to do some other preparation activities with that overtime. TIS fencing. The fencing around TIS playground is falling apart. So people may be, if you're walking around that area in the next day or two, just take a look at it, starting to bend completely outwards. And so this would be replacing that. And then Chromebook cases would be getting all of the units a case so that they do not get destroyed or damaged. And so the combination of these for potential end of year expenditures would be $295,641. The next section 4 is investments. So these are things that are in the budget that we are, for all intents and purposes, taking out of fiscal year 22. So, I was asked to remind people in one of our meetings that that means that, if we're making a pre-investment in fiscal year 22 of these items, that means it'll have fiscal year 23 impacts because, we'll need to climb up from there in fiscal year 23. They'll be coming out of fiscal year 22, and they will be an investment from this year into fiscal year 22, thus reducing fiscal year 22 budget. And so this is one of our main means of reaching the 2% without having the impact of having to eliminate staff or doing something like that. So you'll see I won't read every single one of these, but the staff and I and administration scoured through the budget, looked at everything we could possibly move. Keep in mind that when you see principal's office, things like that, we really do have to recover those in fiscal year 23. Otherwise, we're sort of kicking a can down the road, and it does catch up with us. But you'll notice that each area, there's BGP, TIS, TMS, there were items that we slated for investment into fiscal year 22, so we could take that budget down. So at the end of this section, you'll notice that the total of these items are $406,924. And you'll recall that the budget target we have to hit is 474. So I'm continuing to work on that. As I mentioned, we're about $70,000 short of that. So that would be the pre-investment amount, almost 1% of our budget. And so you can see how, going from the 319 to the 2, this is about a percentage of that reduction down. So then section 5 here basically just takes the potential expenditures and the end of year investments and gives us a total of 702. And we take the figure you saw at the beginning, 1,018,000, subtract the 702 of end of year expenditures and potential fiscal year 22 investments, and you have about 315,734 remaining if this were happening today. Now, it's obviously not happening today, which means this budget will fluctuate over the next few months, which is why this document is a working document straight into June. But in June, these numbers will be much more, they'll be much more banged down, much more accurate, really. So where we are right now, there's still a lot of fluctuation in the last 3 months of the school year. But you will see that it's not, ridiculously out of the realm of possibility. These numbers will probably not be vastly different, but they will be different simply because we're 3 months out. But as you recall from last year, so this is really just an exercise in, in the concept. In April, it's an exercise in the concept. In June, we want to have this down in June. The last phase document, or the phase 3 end of year document, that's used at the end of our fiscal year to know where our funds are going. And it worked very well last year. We did a percentage split. You may remember we did 30, 40, 30. 30% to ERF, 40% to the pandemic fund, and 30% to the town. In this case, in talking with the various stakeholders, there just isn't as much. So there was a desire to have 50% go into the ERF and 50% to the COVID pandemic account, which makes a lot of sense because we will be continuing to struggle with a lot of elements of the pandemic as a school system all the way through next year. So I think it was very great, smart move on the FFC's part and others who've been looking at that. So the bottom line is it's a split. So whatever is left right now, it's we're assuming, if we were doing this today, it would be 315,734 left. Assuming you're doing a 50-50 split between the ERF and the COVID pandemic fund. And keep in mind that we do have to talk to the town council between June and August to determine if the COVID pandemic fund or COVID fund will continue into the future. I think it would be a really good idea if it did. But anyway, if it were to continue, then 50% goes into that. So if you're breaking that down and you have 315,734, that breakdown is going to roughly be 157 and 157. That puts you back up to the 315. So this section summarizes everything in the previous sections. Summarizes what the budget is, what the reduction is, what today's balance would be after the figure is adjusted in section 2. It has the potential end of year expenditures. It has the end of year investments, the total of those. It has the remaining funds if we were talking about today. And then it breaks those funds into a 50-50 split between the ERF and the pandemic emergency fund. So that gives a full picture to the board of where we are exactly today, what we could have for investments, what we could have for expenditures, and a final piece of data. And thanks to the council, you may notice that the council had a resolution last night and transferred over the 212,000 there. So our total now is 503,014 in the educational reserve fund. You may recall the reserve fund is much like the assigned and unassigned balance of a town. It is a fund that is rainy day, really, and we can use it for 3 things. We can use it for special education, we can use it for technology, and we can use it for capital expense. It's not a bad idea to have something in there like that, or have funds in there and build that up a bit, because the next few years are going to be very interesting with respect to COVID and adjustments and things that we're going to be doing. So we do want to make sure that we're leaving a sufficient amount to adjust to impacts as they come. And similarly, really, in many ways to that assigned and unassigned fund balance. It's something that's there, that can be accessed when needed, but a resource that we shouldn't squander, so to speak. And so it's the same logic. In any case, that wraps basically the whole thing. And I'll just hand it back over to Madam Chair.
Well, thank you, Dr. Willett, for walking us through this, because I think you did a great job. I mean, that's a lot of work to go through. And like I said, with the FFC and going through all the numbers and crunching them and seeing what we have, I totally appreciate all of the efforts that went into this. Definitely have a couple of you definitely answered some of my questions as I was writing down, and then I was like, look at you, answer my questions before I could ask them. So at this point, I'm going to open up the floor. We have Madhu.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick questions. Is there a reason why we're including capital items into our budget, or is this part of the reason why we're getting, money to the ERF from the town council?
Well, the ERF was set up as as sort of this option for the board should rainy day emergency or other things arise where we needed it, whether it's special ed or capital. And so that's always been something. For instance, we used it very recently for technology to shore up the the Chromebooks during the middle of the pandemic. We achieved a lot through state grants, but we weren't able to achieve everything, and so we did use some ERF for that. It's there, and we've used it to balance out the equation. So capital is typically done through the capital process with the town. But there are different arrangements. Yusuf is, again, a different example. There's debt service on the Board of Ed side. And that's not quite, that's a capital expense, but just done in a different way. So there's various means to skin the cat, so to speak, various ways to solve the problem. And the ERF is just another way to go and get, a capital expense done if we
But why are we taking on a capital expense? I guess is what I'm asking. Because I noticed throughout the budget, we have a capital expense for I believe it's the geothermal heating system that we have as a capital expense that we're paying for out of our budget.
Well, that's part of the UISF agreement in terms of how to fund the geothermal systems through the savings of the energy and so on. And then the board did take that service on that. But this is, you'll notice that we do end up at end of year time on a Board of Ed budget taking small capital items because they don't sometimes or often make it in to the town side. And sometimes if they do make it into the town side, they're going to be many years out because we have to balance, how and how much we ask. So there do sometimes become these opportunities to then take care of a capital item like a scoreboard, where instead of putting it, say, on the town side for a bond or something, we can take it out of an end of year fund. And, a year like now with the pandemic, where we haven't been able to retain all the staff that we really needed, it put a big burden on a lot of us. And so the payoff of the big burden having been placed on us hopefully won't be the same way, next year. But people retiring, people resigning, people leaving, and us having to fill spots, that differential allows us to get a scoreboard. And then that scoreboard doesn't have to come off of doesn't have to be requested in capital, and it's more money the town has, and then less maybe that it has to find, and maybe that helps us get better budgets, better and higher budgets. So it's trying to help out, by taking something off the plate. And it's never huge. We usually don't have enough to redo, say, the athletic field there, but we will have enough to replace the scoreboard, get a sky lift. And when we do that, then we don't ask for it from the town, and then the town has more resources to do things, more broadly in the community. So it is helpful, and end of year funds do tend to, when these options arise, that's why we will try to do them.
Okay, so can you also elaborate in section 4, how these pre-purchases are going, or pre-investments, I should say, are going to will affect fiscal year 23? Will in fiscal 23, will it just look like the percentage of increases are just exponential? Is that what it's going to look like?
Yeah, it'll look, when you see the percentage increase will be, high. It'll be 60, 70, 80, 100, depending on what we invested. Because when we invested and it comes out at 22, when we need it in 23, it looks like you're building up from a lower point, when in actuality, you actually did have those items purchased. It's just it was purchased from an investment from the previous year. So it's, it does have a double-edged sword to it. We will need to have, many of these things. And so fiscal year 23 will look like it is an increase, really when it's just keeping a lot of things the same,
Mm-hmm. And then my last question is there a reason, if we're short on our budget $70,000, well, as it's projected right now? I mean, and I know this is subject to change, but is there a reason why we're putting, you know, less or like $300,000 into the various reserve funds as opposed to just cutting them back by 70,000?
Well, in order to hit the reduction we need, we would have to make more pre-investments out of fiscal year 22 or do something different, which I'm searching for. I know line 730 is kind of always a popular place to go, but I am at a point where I don't think I can do much more with that. And so I'm trying to think of other things. That money that, if we had any left over, that will get lower, as we adjust and find more fiscal year 22 offsets or investments. So whatever's used up here reduces what we have left over at the end. So that's kind of how that plays out. We probably won't have 315 left at the end. That just is what the snapshot looks like right now, because at this moment in time, that's as far
Right.
as
I
could
expect that
get.
to change substantially and multiple times until the end of the year. But
Yeah.
okay. That answers my question. Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm
Sure.
done.
Thank you, Madhu. Let's go to Jacob.
Dr. This all together the past couple weeks. So there's a lot to talk about. I'll focus my questions up on how we get to that how we get that extra $70,000 without digging too deep a hole of ourselves for next year. I had a couple of suggestions for that, or at least questions about that. I was wondering in particular if there are any other conference or travel expenses that could be pre-purchased or prepaid. Is that something that could be done in advance?
Probably not specifically travel. Conferences, it depends. I'm gonna see if I can find more program type things, but we want to be, again, careful of doing too much more with it, because if we can't support it, we lose the program entirely because we take it out of the budget. So I'm kind of tiptoeing on a fine line now, a little nervous about taking more out of, say, that type of thing. But we're looking at it and thinking about it. Obviously, we'll be talking more in FFC about that too.
Okay. And then the other thing was, this is a couple weeks ago, there was talk about something with us transferring something that was paid for, a position paid for through stipends to a position or something like, I'm going to get all the details wrong, but I see you nodding your head. Do you remember this? Is this still on the table?
Yeah, so we are funding 2 positions next year through the ESSER 2 funds.
Okay.
And that allowed us, if you, going back in our timeline, when we moved from the superintendent's proposed to the Board of Ed adopted, what we did is we shifted positions out of the operating budget into grants. And so there are 2 positions, social work and counselor, that are funded through grants. And that allowed us to reduce the budget to where the Board of Ed budget ended up being.
Okay. All right. So that's a slightly different thing. I couldn't remember exactly. That was what that related to. And then the other thing, I noticed for potential end of year expenditures, you took course reimbursement out of there. I think that was the only thing that was reduced from that line. I just wanted to know. Yeah.
I removed it because I thought some of the comments about it were that it might not have been, as clear as some other things. So you'll notice that what replaced it was the fencing. The fencing is a very straightforward tangible that most people can see when they drive by it. The reimbursement bit is probably a little confusing because of the reimbursement conversation we were already kind of having. So I took away from some conversations I was having with various board members and so on, and feedback. And in the meantime, I was talking and looking at the fence and going, wow, that's not in there. Why didn't we put that in there? Because it's falling over. So it's an opportunity, these things, like I said, they will come up. In fact, in the next month or so, something else might actually come up, that hadn't been noticed before. But but that fencing is pretty bad. So that was something that made more sense to use here because it's a little less of an amount, but I think it's understood better.
Okay. And if you're not looking at, some of those more, I don't know, tangential items to education, to use for lack of a better term, like conferences or some like prepaying into insurance or whatever, kind of where's the search now as far as investing for next year?
At the moment,
Yeah.
I am pondering. I don't have an answer to that just yet. My main focus for the last few days is getting ESSER 2 done now. So as
Okay.
soon as I get that actually submitted in the system, I'll refocus my energy on that 70. But I've been asking people to think about where else we could go and come up with some suggestions to some of the team meetings I'm having. We really did squeeze the turnip real hard for a lot of things here. You'll notice there's quite a few in the section 4. So it is going to be a little bit of a struggle to come to that, but I'm confident we can get there. But I don't know off the top of my head at this moment. Sorry.
All right. No, well, we got a little bit of time, and we'll just have this document continue to evolve over the next couple months. I'm done.
Thank you, Jacob. Let's go to Rini.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Willett, for going through this and making some changes. So I was trying to scribble down some notes from the packet we got.
Yeah.
So if you could go to that section 3, just so I don't talk about something that's been taken off. A couple things, the BGP truck rental and the BGP moving labor, those equal $25,000. So if those are like additional items, I guess I'm wondering, how are those not part of the budget that we have for next year? Because, and shouldn't that be like considered really more of an investment? Because otherwise, how was this work going to get done if we didn't have year-end funds?
Well, we didn't know, what would be covered fully and what wouldn't be covered fully. There was a little bit of fluctuation in that for a variety of reasons. And the amount that's budgeted for the project that's coming to an end, is not going to include as much as we had hoped it would. So there are some things that we need to do on our side of the fence to make that happen in the best way possible. Now, if we couldn't fund these, that just means it happens much more slowly and probably with only the people that we have, which is not great for our timeline. And so, we're ending with a little bit different of a picture than we thought we might. And so we do and would benefit from using these funds in this way. And we do tend to benefit from, an end of year fluctuation. In this particular year, we had the confluence of two major things. We had the pandemic and we had the Birch Grove project. The Birch Grove project had an extremely fast timeline. And some things were picked up by the council last year that aren't picked up this time. So this end of year, rush, and it really is going to be a rush from when that building is completed to when we have to be in it. It normally would not be a timeline like this. So investing or using the funds in this way just means that we'll have a much smoother transition and we'll have far fewer issues executing this if we can make the investment in the truck. So if we don't get the truck, for instance, then we have nowhere to store the boxes in May. So right now our portables are really small, as you know. I mean, they're not small, they're great for the kids, but they're not, they don't have a lot of room for storage. Now, if we were normally moving from a building to a building, we might be able to keep the boxes in one place and then move them to the next. But right now, the staff has to pack up the boxes and there's no room for them. They can't sit in the classroom and they can't sit in the hallways. So this truck is going to allow us to, help deploy these things into kind of a holding space, and it'll give us options we don't have. BGP moving labor, we can bring in way more college students and other people to help, and so we can make it much faster and much less arduous on the staff. And the staff has already been through a very hard time with the pandemic. They're stretched as thin as they can be. So we can execute it otherwise. I mean, we can, but it's much harder, and it would have less efficiency than if we had the opportunity to make this investment and do it in this way. It's much like the math program. I mean, we can execute it a different way, but it would be much more efficient and much better if we could do it. So at the end of the year, if we have funds available to do something like this, this allows us to get it done in a way that would be preferable to the alternatives if we did not expend it that way.
Okay. The overtime, the $25,000 overtime, you said something about grounds. I don't know if you can sum that up in a couple sentences. What is that?
When we put it in here, because I take these as a a collective of feedback from our staff. It's everything needed to make sure that our buildings and grounds are ready for the beginning of the year. And more will need to be done now than has needed to be done in the past. Between the, it's kind of a perfect storm of good things. The pandemic is ending, hopefully. But there's a lot of stuff that we need to be doing because of that. And there's Birch Grove's project, which is ending, which is a good thing. But there's more work to be done there than we would have otherwise done. So we are without a doubt going to be going into more overtime than we would have otherwise. And if we can't, it just takes us a lot longer to complete these things. It's a lot less efficient. The other thing to keep in mind is we're a little understaffed when it comes to some of the departments we have. Facilities, for instance, we get an amazingly talented facilities department here. It's comprised of about 3 people, it's comprised of 3 people. And so if we have overtime, we don't burn those individuals out, and we don't lose our talent because we're taking care of them by making sure they have enough support that not everything falls to them. So being able to do things, use and utilize overtime when we have the ability to do so, to finish things more quickly and without as much of a burden on people that that we have working for the district during the normal hours, means that we have a better chance of retaining talent, and we have a better chance of getting things done in a faster manner, and fortunately, fortunately, BGP gets us. It's a bigger thing right now that we have to wrap up, and that'll be a big part of that.
Okay, I don't understand how overtime uses different people, but I'm just gonna let it go. Okay, I guess my only other thought is around the split. I am somewhat more feeling as though there should be some level of split to the town, because we do often look to them to help us in future years offset some things. That's just my opinion. And so I'll just throw that in. And that was it for me.
Thank you, Rini. Any members have any other further questions at this time? Dana?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. First of all, Dr. Willett, thank you for your creativity and you and the staff's due diligence and efforts to attempt to be as creative as possible to ensure that we don't make an impact with our staff and services to our students. So I'm very appreciative. Some of the things that I had talked about, and I think it was FSC, about spending all the money that we had end of year. I'm very concerned about doing all this pre-investing, as Madhu was talking about fiscal year, 23, how it impacts 22 to 23. Because correct me if I'm wrong, if we purchase, let's just use whole numbers, right? We purchase something at $500,000. It looks like it's really zero on our budget next year. So then when we need the other 500,000, we're in the whole 500 and then we're over 500. So it looks like we're at that million, right? On the increase. Is that a correct assessment? But it looks like
Right.
we're increasing our budget. It looks like we're increasing that line in theory.
Yeah, in fact, yeah, to use a figure, right? If you pay 5,000 for something from fiscal year 21 and you invest in fiscal year 22 and take it out of the budget, then in fiscal year 23, that 5,000 looks like an increase. When
Right,
you
so-
had it, yeah.
Okay, so I just get concerned because we're always looking at the Board of Ed increase via percent and dollars. So if we're going to have to spend that extra 500,000 or whatever it is, or we're going to spend that in the next year, it's going to inflate our numbers on the other end. So it's going to look like the Board of Education is asking for an exorbitant increase, when in all actuality, we're not, just because we pre-invested money, correct?
It'll look higher. The increase does, that will constitute an increase. Whatever we took out and then put back in for 23 will constitute an increase. So yes.
So it'll overinflate it. So again, if I was a bystander or someone new to Tolland or someone who doesn't get to come to all of our FFC meetings and BOE meetings and budget workshops, it would look like we're financially utilizing a lot of our money, but like we're asking for a lot year over year, where in theory we're just maintaining services. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding that. The other question that I had, and don't scroll on me, you had Chromebook cases at 42. No, I'm teasing. I'm teasing you because you're scrolling.
I'm sorry.
You had the Chromebook cases at 42.5. And I'm sorry if you said this. I don't know if I missed it. Are those additional Chromebook cases for the Chromebooks that we ordered this year? Are those replacement cases for different things?
This would be additional cases so that we could round out every unit would have a case. And we would make incentives for parent guardians who had already purchased the case, which we'll give them breaks in insurance, things like that. But our objective is to get every one of these units into a case.
Okay. And thank you for asking about the allocation to the families who already purchased cases. I know there's several without. So families have taken it upon themselves, we'll call it the parent tax, the parent tax to purchase Chromebooks. So I didn't know if these were in addition to those and replacement of those, or just to replace, to backfill, or just to get us to ground zero.
They would, they would be to shore up the units that don't have them at all. And then, like we said, we will give a break to the parents who did. So the point is to just get everybody in one, and then from the foreseeable future, just make sure we're grouped. Whenever we buy them with a case.
Okay. And I'm sorry. So, and I know that you've probably exhausted all resources and ways to purchase it, but could we use tech funds for that, for Chromebook cases?
That's where we get into sort of the gray line, like a computer or a Chromebook is clearly technology.
Right.
That is a case. So it would depend on how the board wanted to interpret that item. Is that, if that falls under technology or not.
Okay. And so, I mean, obviously the Chromebooks and Chromebook cases are going to be a recurring expense. It's not going to be a one-time giddy up, because I know how I treat my cell phone, and I try to keep it really nice and I'm dropping it all the time, let alone our young adults and even our littles, in school. So this is going to be a recurring expense that we're going to have to replace throughout the years.
Yeah,
I mean, not just 42,000, but this will be in our budget year over year.
Yeah, we'll be able to cycle some of these. These will last us for a while, but yes, eventually they will become part of what we have to, make year after year. In some sense, maybe not all of them, because we can't, the ones that get destroyed, yes, but not all of them will get destroyed.
Understood. Well, I mean, even just regular wear and tear, let alone use and abuse. And I guess my last one, and I don't know if it got lost in the translation, with the overtime. Can you go over that again really quick?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I mean, it's kind of hard because I know, so sometimes there is an opportunity where there are things that need to get done and there are people willing to do it. And it just does take the pressure off because there's more to do now than we normally have. And people that are responsible for these things do not have the option of bringing people in for overtime will end up trying to get it done other ways that usually burns people out or creates problems. We just are going to need more overtime. We need more hours because we have more work to do than we have people and hours to do it. So we're going to have to push into additional hours. And when we can't do that, individuals and others feel compelled to try to solve the problem in a different way. And it usually is not a good thing. It is something that causes a lot of stress. Things don't get done. So having the option of overtime for the people willing to do it takes a lot of pressure off of trying to find a way, to make something work when you just don't have enough hours in the day to do it. And if we don't have the funds to pay people for overtime, we don't have people to do it. So it just takes a lot of pressure off to know that we have, it available to utilize when we're in a situation where there's much more work to do than there are hours to do it in for a typical workforce.
No, understood. And again, I don't know if I misunderstood reading Ms. Bisow's questions or misunderstood your answer. I don't know. I mean, again, in comparison to a lot of companies, they're attempting to provide, I mean, I know in our situation, we have an exorbitant amount of work and labor that needs to get done, specifically with the Birch Grove move, specifically with, all the additional resources that we'll be providing, we'll continue to provide and additional provide for our students. I think it's smart to invest in the overtime in our folks versus attempting to outsource or whatever to folks that aren't necessarily qualified, and also, to increase the overtime to relieve some burden of some folks that can't do it all themselves, other staff members within our districts is what I'm understanding that you're saying, correct?
Yeah.
Versus outsourcing or temp. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Thank you for the clarity. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't twisting and misunderstanding what you had answered. So thank you very much. And that's all I have, Ashley. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dana. Griffin?
Thank you, Ashley. And thank you, Dr. Willett, for putting this together. This is a great, starting document, and I'm sure we'll be tweaking it many times. So you actually answered the few other questions I have, but I just wanted to kind of, put my support behind what you've, been doing here. And I think that, while not ideal to be cut by the 474,000, I think that this really does make the most sense of how we can still provide the services and staff and programs for next year without actually having to cut anything. So I just, again, wanted to reiterate my support for all the work you've done on this. And I think that this will, wherever it lands, I think we'll be in good shape. So I appreciate all the work you've done. Thank you.
And and thank you. I'll take one more shot at overtime. So, an example would be like COVID cleaning, especially mid-shift and during the day. Sometimes we are short custodians, so other custodians have to work overtime to cover it because of medical issues, terminations, maintenance on weekends for plumbing and other invasive repairs that are really hard to do during the week. If they had to be done during the week, they're pushing people over the edge. If we have overtime, we can get them done over a weekend. We have COVID testing centers at THS, and grounds need to be managed for that. And we can't do that with our regular time. So overtime helps us support even the health district and COVID testing. So, I apologize. I'm trying to make it clear, but I'm just probably just a little fatigued here. So hopefully that's a little bit better. Pete Staba does a great job of articulating these things, and he's very helpful. So basically, that's my best shot, hopefully, of helping with that one.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Willett. Madhu?
Sorry, I forgot when I was going earlier. I did just want to thank FFC for their tireless work on this, and Dr. Willett and his staff for doing this. And I also wanted to thank Christine for answering my questions about it, like at 10 o'clock at night a couple days ago. So that was very nice of her, and she didn't have to do that. And I just wanted to say I appreciated it.
She loves numbers. She thinks about numbers. Okay, thank you. So at this time then, let's move to the COVID update.
Okay. So the COVID update has two general parts, and then whatever we also want to talk about within that. We are moving forward very rapidly. Vaccination clinic, the second of two, is happening on the 16th on Friday. Thanks very much to the Eastern Highland Health District, Miller, and others. It's a very efficient event. Our staff works very hard to prep the area and make everything just right. And Paula Fireharm, our director of nursing, and our nurses participate and help us get through it. So we should be able to execute that just like we did the first one very well. And so that's coming up on the 16th. And my hope is by the end of this month that we'll have staff done, and that hopefully our young adults are moving in that direction too with the other opportunities that are available. Unfortunately, I was not able to get our 18-year-old students in on this one because there are limitations and rules about when one is offered in a school for staff, and so I wasn't able to do that. But I have put out a lot of options for the students and the young adults, and I have, I've been helping families and VAMs and offering support that way, and of course put out an info document to help. So we're moving forward quite well with that. We are facing a little bit of a blip. Tolland right now, in general, the municipality is back in the red. It is what it is. It does happen, and it shifts back and forth. We're seeing more of the B117. I'm sure everybody's heard that in the news. It's getting in and it's sweeping through. Some other states have other ones. Connecticut happens to be grappling mostly with that one at the moment. The most prevalent one now is that in Connecticut. So we do see kind of more red than we did before. We're looking a little bit like we were some other times in the pandemic, but there's a lot of good news. We're working through our region, and I think it has a lot to do with the hard work of the people in your municipality and how great this community is and working together. You'll see that the 14-day positivity average is pretty low for Tolland. You're noticing as we move along here, the circle is where I could make it show up because there's a mouse over effect here. But the line is really here. So you'll notice that, there was sort of this dip and then up and then down and then up again over the holidays. And right after the holidays, you had your rise. We are rising again. And that has, again, a lot to do with variance. But, among those rising, Tolland still remains very low comparatively. And that's something that I think the community can feel good about. I think there's a lot of reasons why that's the case. Looking at hospitalizations, again, you see this sort of pretty big jump here in January, and then it kind of goes down. There's mixed results happening right now, but Tolland again does well comparatively. The board members who are on the team that review this recognize the charts that I'm showing you because I tend to work through these in the team meetings that we have for COVID. So board members will recognize this, but we're doing pretty good here too. I would say it's to the credit of the community and the efforts that are being made as well. Similarly, COVID-like illnesses, everyone is starting to rise up, but of the group that is rising, we're still low in the pack. So we're seeing a bit of a blip here, and I think everybody knows it. But at the same time, the vaccinations are starting to take effect, and hopefully we'll see a mitigating of that curve. It's rising, but I think it'll be mitigated as we move forward. You also see a data in a different kind of snapshot here right after the holidays. What we expected, kind of happened. There was a bit of a spike, then it goes down a little bit more as you're entering this time of year. You're noticing again, we have what was reflected in the other data points too, that it's kind of edging up. The statistic that's most poignant for me when I'm thinking about the kinds of things I'm thinking about is that across the board here, it's the 16 to 25-year-olds who are higher than any other group now in our district. So in our health district, it's that group of people that that population of individuals that is most affected right now. And so we do have to keep a careful eye on that because there are hospitalizations among teens and the B117 and things like that, prior to vaccination. They can be a little nasty. So, we are seeing more in this particular age group now and the age group next to it than we've seen, I think, in most of the pandemic. You're seeing quite a bit of an impact. So once again, those are being mitigated by the actions that are taking place. Even though it is more contagious, the PPE stops it the same way the PPE stopped it before. So as long as you're using good practice and maintaining, taking all the mitigations, using our MERV filtration where we can, having the PPE, making sure, that we're being careful and following protocols and schedules and avoiding congregating settings as much as possible, from the standpoint of eating, things like that. We're maintaining a very good pattern here in Tolland. We have not shut down a school once, and comparatively, knock on wood and say our prayers, to whomever you pray to, but we are doing a pretty good job of, even when we're getting an impact, our quarantines are fairly low and comparatively low, and I think that has a lot to do with the hard work of the people throughout this town and district. So we're in a good place. We have reason to remain vigilant for sure, but we are in a good place. Other COVID related items, like what will our end of year events be? And forgive me if you see any syntactic errors or anything here. I was kind of putting it together fairly quickly at the end, but BGP right now is going to have an outdoor field day as we get to the end of the year. TIS is having its modified field day outside, a 5th grade class day outside. We're going to do Tolland Green Day like we have in the past. You'll notice there's a lot more going on this year than there was last year. Sadly, last year, we know we had to shut down and a lot of people missed out. And so the key to it this year is doing it, but not doing it as if the pandemic did not exist. We do it, taking into consideration the pandemic. And so, these events will be fun and the kids will really enjoy them. But, we don't ignore the fact that there's a pandemic. And so for TIS and TMS, you have that drive-through promotion. We'll have these balloon arches and people can drive up and take pictures and whatever, that type of thing. And there'll be other things that the kids can do. There'll be a strip where they drive and all the staff are there cheering them on and congratulating them and so on. But we're going to keep these kinds of things to that drive up structure and methodology, which is recommended outdoors, driving up, going through a fun activity, and then doing a parade. That type of thing is, is where it's going this year, advisably too. There is going to be instead TMS this year. There's going to be an extravaganza, which will be a little indoor and outdoor. We'll have MERV 13 filtration systems for the building for where the kids would be. Those are capable of scrubbing viruses like COVID. The step-up day is April 29th to 30th. 5th graders are also going to be visiting TMS, and there'll be a parent night that's virtual. And again, there's a drive-through promotion. So that's what's on the docket or the plan for TMS. And THS, a prom, June 4th. Anywhere indoors that we use will be, we'll have MERV 15 filtration units, which are hospital level. I'm very fortunate to have that in Tolland. I don't think I've ever been anywhere where we've had that in a building. So it is, hospital level filtration capable of filtering out viruses, things like that. So anytime or anywhere that they're indoors in these groupings, they're, going to be in areas that have that. And then outdoors, obviously, there'll be portions of it that are outdoors. June 8th, there's a senior day, 12 to 3, that'll be outdoors. And, they're in the process of continuing to plan that. And as you know, graduation is June 18th, and we are working and looking at potentially, Dunkin' Donuts Stadium. So that is a general overview of the events and how they're going to happen under COVID and under the pandemic considerations that we have. And again, like our end of year document, these kinds of things will fluctuate a little bit based on what happens. But based on what we have right now, these are prudent ways forward that will offer the kids and young adults and the families really meaningful activities and events to participate in. So this is just a basic overview. I'm sure I'm missing something here, but I'll keep reporting out on that as we go along. So I think that's basically the rundown. I talked about vaccinations, talked about the general prevalence, talked about our events. I do think with the progress that we're making, we will be coming up on the next pandemic period in early May. And, I have said a couple times I can see and would like to see us moving towards, as much in person as possible. So, expanding the 5 days, looking at Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, those schedules, and seeing based on the next couple of weeks, based on where the prevalence goes and the vaccination progress, we may be able to move that forward again, as I've said in the past, and then maybe, I would like to keep and want to keep Wednesdays the same, but the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday could change. So, making more of the school day or all of the school day there. So it's a very important time for us. There's a lot of great things happening for kids. And we are, moving forward the way we have all year long in a very careful and calculated manner. Hearing a lot of positive things about the support and the experience that young adults and kids are having. And I think everybody's eager to wrap up the year strong, as the Connecticut State document says, to finish strong, and to hopefully put the largest aspects of this pandemic behind us. I think it'll stay with us next year, but my hope is that, and my endeavor is that we start next year with our complete normal structure, with the exception that we will have some remote learners as dictated by the state, and we will have PPE. I don't think that's going away, but that, I expect us to have a regular schedule next year. That is my expectation, and that is where I believe we will go. And those of you, that have worked with me on this, know that, when I do say something like that, ultimately we get there. So I think next year we will be in our typical schedule, non-pandemic, with adjustments that the state requires. We'll probably have some extended school day aspects. We'll probably have some remote students, either in a separate program or in our program. And we will have PPE. I'm fairly certain PPE will not go away. So that's roughly where we are right now. And if anyone has any questions.
Well, what you did forget is that you're not in the dunk tank for the spring fling. You got off this year.
No, got away with it this year.
It's coming at some point. I'm just letting you know, because it is virtual, but no dunk tank. So at some point, PPE dunk tank is happening.
Yeah. I'll bring my flotation devices.
Hey, the principals do it. You gotta go ahead and go do that. But they are doing it virtually this year, so that is definitely a plus. I did have a quick question in terms of the prom. I know that we're doing having the senior prom, but what about the juniors?
Well, I think right now we're concentrating our efforts on that senior activities, senior prom, and the concentration of people. We can't have a lot of people, in one place. So, the juniors will have their opportunity for a school, the school's prom for next year. And, during next year, there may be some opportunities to do some things more, in a way that we could not do them this year. So perhaps next year, something could be done when that class is a senior. Maybe we make, something different out of homecoming, or, we do something different than we would normally do it because that group didn't do the junior prom. But this year we just wanted to focus that energy, resource, and time on this class to make sure that the senior class got the best experience they can, knowing that the juniors will have next year and probably have a much more normal year. So that's essentially the reasoning there.
Thank you for that. I was just wondering if there was something for them, just some activity for them. I mean, I just figured, the junior prom, because typically it's the juniors and the seniors that have the proms together. So that's why I just wanted to make sure that the junior class got something along the lines. But I did have a question in terms of the graduation too. When is it going to be confirmed that we definitely have Dunkin' Donuts? Because it's like you say that we do, but then you're kind of like, well, we still need to make sure. So I just want to.
Yeah, well, we do. I mean, 99% have it. Simply that you have to make you have to make your deposits more than one, and that kind of thing. So we have it. That is 99% where it's going to be. And we are going to have backup plan though, just because it's good to have some kind of backup plan for everything. But I will say that the management has been great, and great group of people down there. There's great people working there. It's a great, really great option, and it is the only place where we could get 5 to 6 tickets per family. And so that was really the main goal. And I've said this a number of times, and whether it was inside or outside, the main goal is, having a nice ceremony, but making sure that we can include as many family members as possible, or as many members of each student's group as possible, socially distanced. So that allows us to have 5 or 6, which is one of the very few places that would have that option.
Well, thank you for that. Like I said, I just wanted to make sure that it is actually confirmed that we have it, because you kind of sounded like, well, we have it.
Well, we made
we don't, but so graduation is at the Argots on the 18th.
Right. Yes.
Perfect. Okay, let me get other questions, because I just had a couple more, but I'm sure someone probably will ask. Jacob?
Got a comment and a question. So first, looking through those numbers, I know that not out of the woods yet completely, but I think overall, just seeing where things were last spring compared to where they are now, or even comparing where they are now to over the winter, it's just very encouraging, with vaccines up on the rise, and again, the cooperation with the town. It does look like we are moving in a great direction, which is really fantastic to see. You hinted on this a little bit. I'll follow up within it. During the curriculum committee meeting, we talked about, what we're going to do going forward for the next period. And you said that you thought there would be a third chance that we might backslide a bit, a third chance that we stay where we are with 5 days in person, and the third chance that we might go more in person. Do you think that those probabilities roughly have changed at all at this point?
Yeah, I think they have. I think I'm more, it's funny because I've become a little superstitious about making a statement and tempting fate, but
yeah,
I've wanted to and feel like we would have the opportunity to move, to the normal end times for Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and I feel strongly that that's a very strong possibility. I think we do have to. I do attend the DPH meetings and multiple meetings a week, and we have our team meetings with all the stakeholders Fridays, and and the board is involved with those once a month too. And so here, where we're at right now is I'm optimistic, but then when you sit through a DPH meeting, you realize that the health officials are, they're watching very carefully what is happening right now. And I think that if we are able to, if people are able to do what's necessary, and we've all heard that the CDC has said this, the DPH has said this, if we don't throw caution to the wind, then we'll probably get these vaccinations, we'll be ahead of the variants. But if people start throwing caution to the wind, the variants take hold, and they have a very detrimental effect. So, who we will not be able to free from quarantine are the little kids. If we can get the older ones vaccinated, at least they're not quarantining. But the little kids, if they get sick and are looking with COVID-like symptoms or getting COVID, we can't vaccinate them. So the 15 and youngers, probably not until the summer will perhaps Pfizer be available for 12 to 15. So we're going to be dealing with these quarantines, and we've got to just keep in mind what the magnitude of those are. And if everybody's pulling together and continues to do some of the great things they're doing, let us know. We can get ahead of it. Call us if they're feeling sick. Call us. Submit to the COVID form. Get vaccinated. Then I think we'll be in a really good place in May. So I'm optimistic, but these meetings that we have, they're what give me pause, because I get into the meeting and there'll be things that are said in that meeting that make us all take a step back and say, okay, well, we know we're still in a pandemic. This has not changed, and we have to be cautious. But I think Tolland has a really good track record of taking and providing the right balance of caution and action. And we've benefited from that. We've had, we've been mostly in, and for most of the year, and we are one of the districts that's been in the top 20% of districts that have been in most. So it's something that I think we'll just continue to approach in a pragmatic way. And I'm very optimistic that, that we would have some new opportunities in May, provided something dramatic doesn't change, and provided people keep pulling and helping and doing what they're doing, being responsible with PPE, calling when their kids are sick, letting us know, all of that. I'm optimistic. I think we will have a good shot.
Well, it's good to hear cautious optimism with all of that. But I think that, with our learning assistant educators too, to help with that remote learning population, that quality of education will continue to go up throughout this year. And finally, Ashley kind of beat me to the punch with this one, but I think it's great that Dunkin' Donuts Stadium looks like it can be an option. I kind of wish my graduation was there. That sounds like it'd be a lot of fun. All right, that's it.
It's the confirmation that it is going to be Dunkin' Donuts. Not even just the option, it's going to happen.
Will happen unless, yes.
You're like, there's that 1%, but.
Well, we've all lived through a year and a half of pandemic. Nothing has been ever the same, but yes, 99, it is going to happen. It will happen.
Thank you, Dr. Willett. Let's go to Plord.
Thank you, Ashley. And thank you, Dr. Willett, for the update on the end of the year. I'd be happy to buy a ticket to that graduation if I'm allowed. It sounds fun. I had more questions, and these are probably questions you can't answer, but I guess they can be ongoing throughout the summer. Just in terms of what next year looks like for parents, you had said, obviously, the littles can't get vaccinated as of yet, nor do I think a lot of parents may want to at this point vaccinate their littles. No judgment there. But I'm just wondering what the contact tracing will look like, and are these kids going to be in and out of quarantine? I know these are things you probably can't answer now, but
Yeah.
It's just what's on my mind. I'm also thinking too, earlier this week, my daughter had a runny nose and wasn't allowed at daycare. No fever, but I took her into the pediatrician and they did a rapid test, and then she was allowed back at daycare the next day because she tested negative. So I'm curious if our nurses would have access to rapid tests. I know they might have them for staff, but I mean, just for the little kids in terms of if they're not vaccinated and they, they could just have a sniffle.
They could, and we've explored that. Right now, we have acquired Binax testing and gotten permission to use it for staff. We were not given permission to do that for students for the Binax Rapids. And so we're looking at how to change that. But the rationale provided for not giving it to the kids is that the rapids are not accurate and that the children may get a false negative, and that would be problematic. And so because of the nature of the test in the kids, if you can do a PCR test, then it's much more accurate. So that was the rationale, I believe, that for why we were not allowed or encouraged to do that. I think we need to revisit that, and I think if we can find resources for doing rapid PCRs, that's even better. So the answer to that is, if that opportunity makes itself available, I am definitely going to snap it up because that will help us next year. We did get that with the staff and we're pursuing that for kids. And I think that could help us next year, at least lower, the number of times it impacts the family. But the fact that it can be in your system, for the reason why they don't want you to test for 5 days after the date of exposure or onset of symptoms, or just really date of exposure, is because there may not be a high enough viral load in your system to tick off the test if you test too soon. So at the point where somebody's symptomatic, theoretically, it would probably tick off, but that's why I guess they're not supporting, doing it, as a solution to a problem, because there's a feeling that they're not accurate enough for the rapid testing. So that's roughly it. But I will pursue and want to have that option or have that resource available to us. Yes, PCR wise, rapid PCRs would be really great.
Thank you. I think that was pretty much it. Just looking at the future, what it looks like for our families.
It is confusing. I will say that if you recall, the travel guidance from the past had a person be able to take a rapid test within 3 days, prior to arrival or arriving in Connecticut. And now the CDC guidance says don't travel and stay out for 7 days, even if you get tested. So it's hard to figure out sometimes. Like the CDC guidance now is actually more strict than what the state was doing when it was under an executive order. So so I don't know what it will look like 3 months from now, because I wouldn't have thought it would have gone in that direction, sort of. But I am committed and want and will work my took us off to try to get us to, and I know all the other staff are in there too, to have us have a normal schedule for next year, a typical non-pandemic schedule. There will still be a lot of pandemic everything in what we have to do, but I would like to see us resume, those operations as a typical year. I think we probably will have some semblance of tracing and things like that.
Okay, thank you. I'm all set, Ash.
And I will say, Florida, I drove by TIS and they were reading books outside. So they were outside getting some sunshine, reading books.
Oh, you know me, I want to put tents up everywhere.
Outside spaces. I was like, look at this. Okay, let's go to Dana next.
Before I go into my questions, Christina and Ashley, I'm sure you guys went on the tour of the new BGP, but there's a ton of the outside spaces in the plan and community spaces for educators. So I'm very excited that we have that opportunity, even post-COVID, for that. So that's awesome. Anytime you could be outside, like today, we could be outside and we're supposed to get snow in 2 days. So who the heck knows what's going on in New England. But anyways, back to the meeting. Dr. Willett, first of all, I want to thank you for helping the families and offering support to our folks who are struggling who want to get the vaccination, who are struggling to get that. I know that there's a lot of resources. I've seen a lot of community members on our community pages, trying to help each other book appointments and such. And I know that when that 16 and up group came through, I mean, it was just a floodgate of people looking. And I know that it's been a stressful and difficult time for all folks involved. So I do appreciate that. I'm ecstatic about the clinics that we set up for our faculty and staff. The question that I had for that is, did we or do we have a choice on the dates? Like, I know that they need to be a certain amount of weeks apart depending on which type of vaccination they're getting, but did we pick the dates? How are the dates assigned to our schools?
For our clinics,
Yes, sir.
they're assigned.
They're assigned. So we didn't have any flexibility to put it on, when we were doing half day Wednesdays or.
No, I mean, the health district had to do it based on when their deliveries of the vaccines came to them. So they receive their deliveries on certain days at certain times, and then they have to get those out within a certain timeline. So I give a great and deep thank you to the EHHD they did relent on allowing us to have this one on a Friday. Originally, this was going to be on a Wednesday, and somebody lost their slot, so we ended up grabbing that Friday slot, and I thank them for that. But no, we don't get to choose these dates. These dates are given to us.
Okay, I guess we're just grateful that we got them right at this point. But yeah, I have a girlfriend of mine in another school district a few towns away, and I asked the same, and they end up doing remote learning on the days of their clinic as well. And I didn't know if it was the same situation as we had here in Tolland. So thank you for the clarity on that.
Sure.
If you could go back to that holiday graph that you had there with the cases, the graph that you had. So I guess my concern would be with spring break coming up. And I know that it's kind of a catch-22. I don't think there's a win-win in this. I think it's more of a lose-lose no matter what. I know that we did take some extra time post holidays just because families were getting together and different things. And I know as we trickle through the vaccination process and we get through that and the weather is getting nicer and people are itching. I mean, we're all itching to get the heck out of Dodge, I'm sure. Have you thought, I mean, I guess if you choose remote or asynchronous learning or remote learning for sometime after spring break, it's not going to make some people happy. And if we stay in school, we might have opportunities of spikes of cases because folks are going out of town or being in larger groups or opening up the opportunity for exposure. I didn't know if that was something that was thought about, or I'm sure it was thought about, but I guess if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, we did think about that. I think that the certain times of year people are going to get together with family, and that's that. There's no question that will happen, and that is natural. The spring break does have a little more variance to it because we're not necessarily feeling that same need to get together with family, and so some of the people that are engaging in many outdoor activities. They're going on to national parks, or they're going to places. Obviously, the CDC says don't travel. Connecticut says don't travel, but within Connecticut, there's many places people can go. Even within Connecticut and have an experience that has them being isolated from others, or has them being able to follow many of the rules. So we're having faith that people will exercise the necessary caution, and the vaccinations are the new factor here that many people will have had the opportunity to do that, and that will have a mitigating effect on the after effect of spring break, more than it did on other things, more than it did at other times of the year. So, so between the vaccinations and the fact that people have a lot of outdoor options for spring break, Not Florida, Daytona Beach spring break. I'm talking more, more like National Park spring break.
Yeah.
But people have options that are not midwinter getting together with, massive gaggles of family. So this is probably and hopefully not going to impact us the way that the bubble did after. You can see that very clearly that happened afterwards, but hopefully it'll be mitigated more with these factors after this particular period of time.
Okay. And my last thing is about promotions and graduations. First of all, I second Jacob. I would have loved my graduation in a baseball park. I heard Dunkin' Donuts Park is a pretty cool place. I haven't been there yet, but if that gets secured, that's going to be a fantastic thing for our folks. But I wanted to talk a little bit about our 5th and 8th grade promotions. And I know that you put structure around it in your explanation about all the end of year activities. But have we thought about maybe doing, I know that you said we have kind of structure around it, but we thought about maybe splitting them into their 2 teams and doing something outside and doing it, one team and then another team. I know our resources we only have so many resources, but
yeah,
is that enough? I mean, it's a pretty big deal leaping to, from TIS to TMS and then TMS to THS. So, and I know that I'm sure Mary and the team and Mr. Deneen and the team are doing planning phenomenal events. But I know, has that been a thought?
Yeah, I think it's just, there's only so much resource and energy to go around. I think that the feeling when we've discussed it, and we've discussed it many times in the groups, looking at the guidance as well, and knowing that these populations are the ones that will not have vaccination, they are going to be more susceptible to a lot of to the quarantining and other things because of it. These are events that were very popular last year and tied in and made and improved by some of the new guidance. I think the feeling is that they will be greatly appreciated by the kids and parents once they're executed and people are seeing how wonderful they are. And so it's kind of like, instead of trying to retrofit an old school thing into a pandemic square, it's kind of looking at it in a different way and saying, well, we have this pandemic condition. How can we make a really awesome event within the scope of what would be safe within the pandemic? And I think that's really what that is. It's giving them that real promotion, feeling. There'll be a lot, because anybody who knows these schools, anybody who knows Mr. Deneen or Ms. Grandi or any of the other people there, they do make it really special. Ms. Merritt, Mr. Spangle, and I expect that they will, and Mr. Swanson, but the little kids aren't so much doing that, but they will make it really special. And they've put a lot of energy and thought into how to do that. So I think that it makes sense to do in this manner this year for a variety of reasons.
No, and I appreciate it, Dr. Willett. I mean, and I shouldn't have said Mary. I should have said Mrs. Grande, because I did say Mr. Deneen, so I apologize for saying that. But and you know what I will tell you, I'm impressed more and more every day with our administrators and our staff and our educators in the town of Tolland. And I know everybody's doing they're working their hardest to make this special in whatever capacity. I would just be remiss if I didn't mention something, because there's no, as long as everybody brings everything to the table, I'm sure we're exhausting every resource. I just wanted to make sure that, I said something that I had been thinking about to ensure. Again, I do hope that we have, I do have every, all the faith in our staff that we are going to do whatever we can to make this year special for all those monumentous occasions for all of our children at all levels. So I appreciate it. I just figured I'd ask. So thank you very much. And I too am looking forward to the spring fling in the dunk tank. It could be in the winter next year. I'm looking forward to it.
You're signed up, Dr. Willett. You got, that's it.
I could tell a lot of eagerness here.
Okay, let's go to Sophia.
Thank you. I think the Dunkin' Donuts Stadium idea is really exciting. And perhaps you said this, Dr. Willett, but how is that going to be paid for? Is that coming as an extra expense to the district?
It is. It's more of an expense. It's in our line there for end of year expenditures.
Okay,
So
I
it
was
is
just
more of an
wondering.
expense. However, let me clarify actually and put that into perspective. It is an additional expense. However, if we did something, for instance, like the turf field, there are expenses related to that. So staging would be $3,000 or $4,000 for staging for the field, and we would have to do a treatment on the track after we had used the track, which would be about $6,000 to $8,000 for the treatment of the track. So when you start to add up the things that we would have to do, even if we're doing it locally, that would add up to an amount that is close enough to the amount that we would be spending here on Dunkin' Donuts Stadium that it just doesn't make sense. So that's kind of where it was at. Plus, as you know, this is very competitive right now. Everybody's trying to figure out what they're going to do, and everybody's grabbing at anything that they feel like they can execute. So I think we were fortunate. We were on this early, and again, like I said, the staff there is amazing, great people. So it's just a real good opportunity for the families in Tolland. We had to act proactively or we wouldn't have the option. So that's kind of how we came to pass on that one. Plus, after looking at it, it's a much higher capacity for not that different of cost overall.
Well, I think it's a fantastic solution, and you definitely did explain that there would be an additional cost if we did have it on the track area. So I think it's a great idea. My other question would be, will the graduation still be live streamed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Sophia. Let's go to Griffin.
Thank you, Ashley. First off, yes, I love the Dunkin' Donuts Park. I think that's going to be awesome. I'm excited for our seniors this year. And I actually wanted to ask, and I think this hopefully is the right section. Dr. Willett, I saw your email go out to parents about summer school, which I know has a different acronym, but I'm completely forgetting it right now. I'm just curious, how is that kind of planning going? You opened it up to everybody, which I think is fantastic. Have we been able to accommodate all the students who've wanted to so far? And what's kind of the plan for that?
So far, yes. And we call it extended school year.
Thank you.
Yes, ESY, because it's, because acronyms are cool. At least to 50-year-old people, probably not to the kids, but nobody wants to be inside in the summer. So, we, we actually are experiencing quite a bit of success with that. Again, it is one of those things that, we knew we were going to need to do. It's an expansion of the program that existed. The 4-week program is now 6 weeks, and it used to be for students, with IEPs and students that couldn't use that kind of assistance. And it is now all students. Any parent guardian who wants their child to attend can. Our only limitation would be staff. If we ended up with staffing shortages for some reason, because we still are in a situation that is pandemic, I doubt that would happen. But that would be the only thing that would stop us from including everybody who wants to do it. So I don't think anybody will be excluded. So it's open to everyone, and we had 80 signups last week, and I have not been able to look at the most recent numbers, but it does close on the 16th. So encourage everybody to sign up. It did go out again as a reminder yesterday, and it's going to have basically math support and building the math skills. It's also going to build ELA skills, and it's got a social emotional learning component to it as well. One of the things we wanted to try to do is make sure it was fun. So it'll have some fun in there. But the social emotional learning component is an important piece too. Students have had a tough year. And so this program has that as an objective as well, not just math, building of skills, not just ELA building of skills, but also attention to the emotional state of the kids, because they've been through a lot. And so the program is taking that specific focus as well for that 6-week period. And, we know that people will also be in and out. So if you're going to, miss a few days, that's fine. Obviously, we would not want people to miss weeks and weeks, but, they can miss a few days here and there for, say, if the family is going somewhere over a long weekend or something like that, or during a week. So it's, we're flexible. I think it's, it was received well, and I'm excited about it. We all are. Patty Hess, Wendy Cody, Barb Daly Burns, and Jen Webster, our administrators, are really the heavy lift on this. They've been making it happen. So thanks so much to them.
Well, it sounds great. So I'm really happy to hear. I hope that it will kind of alleviate some parents' fears too about if their kids might have experienced some learning loss this year. So kudos to you and your staff for pulling it off. So I look forward to hearing how it goes when in July. So thank you.
And it runs July 6th to August 12th, for everybody interested.
Thank you, Dr. Willett. And also just for clarification too, I do think that, I know that you said it on the bulletin and the backpack and putting things of that nature, but I do think that we need to send out another reminder that Friday is a remote day for parents. I mean, the reminders always are helpful, especially when it's a change up. So if we can somehow, whether you put it on the superintendent's page or send an email that information is very pertinent, so we don't have kids waiting at the bus stop on Friday.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's go on to the committee and liaison reports. I know that, let's see, Birch Grove, I know had something, right, Dana?
Sorry, no, not much, because we did cancel. It was a beautiful day, and we had approved all of our change orders the week before for an emergency meeting. So we canceled our actual formal meeting last week. We did do a handful of change orders in order to keep the progress going. It is on time, and I do know that we just had our last meeting. Katie gave a good update. But yeah, knock on wood, we're moving and grooving. So I don't know if any of you have driven by the school, but it looks absolutely phenomenal. So credit to the staff that's out there doing that.
Perfect. Thank you, Dana. Rini, with negotiations, can you say that you met?
We did meet, and we're making good progress, and we're having good discussions. So it's going well. Perfect.
How about curriculum?
Yes, curriculum met about 2 weeks ago. We had a good discussion about COVID and some of the challenges that lie ahead in the fall. We talked a bit about the remote learning assistant educators, which we have one per school, right, Dr. Willett, that are helping assist teachers with online learners. We also talked a bit about social emotional learning and some of the details in the science program. Additionally, we had the SBAC conversation again. We're still working on a letter, and we don't have one yet presented to the board, but that should be coming. And then finally, we just had a quick update about some different presentations that we're going to be having, science and math at the curriculum committee level, and then a pathways presentation for the board that we would like to see, hopefully in the next couple of months.
Perfect. Dr. Will, I do think that we have pathways. You were saying maybe in May, correct?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, Jacob. How about communications? Anything from you ladies?
We have an official new date and time, the fourth Monday of every month at 3 p.m. Starting April 26th.
So fourth Monday at 3 p.m. you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. I'm not forgetting anybody at this point of time. If anyone has anything, you can raise your hand. If not, I will continue on. Okay, for chairperson's report, I just want to make sure that everyone has a great spring break and just stay safe. And whether you stay here, I mean, if you're traveling, that's that's on you. But make sure that you stay safe. You wear your mask, use your hand sanitizer, and just once again, stay safe. And if we could go to the board action for the healthy food certification.
Right.
If Dr. Willie, you want to walk us through? I mean, I know this is one of those that we have to do every year.
Yes, and it is quite a resolution or a motion. This is one of the bigger ones that we have ever. But essentially, we are this is a no-brainer for the district. It's a healthy food certification statement program. When we participate in the program, we do benefit financially from that participation. There are 3 considerations for vote by the Board of Education, and as to whether to implement these or not. I'd recommend implementing them. I don't know if you want me to read every single aspect of this one, but essentially that it is that we will comply with the nutrition standards with the food that we offer, that we do provide exemptions for certain extracurricular activities. You'll notice sometimes there's snack bars, things like that. And so you're allowing the exemptions. And they're allowing some exemptions for beverage items. So there are the motions that are required in this case in order for us to get the reimbursement are big. So I would recommend maybe saying the motion for food exemptions as written here, and then you can vote, discuss it. Oh, it's the little Philbins. Hello, Philbins. And so I would recommend maybe just referring to the motion and then as written, the motion for exemptions, and then second discussion. You can wrap these all up and do them in one if you wanted to, but we do have to, in our language, have used the language of the state in order to get the reimbursement. So maybe the best way is to do it separately as written. Somebody say motion for motion language for food exemptions, and just say, as stated in the K1 document. And then you can do a second discussion and vote, and then do that for the next one and the next one, and you should be all set if you wanted to do it.
So we'll do one for each section then, is what you're saying is the best approach.
Yeah, I guess I would just, given to make sure we do this exactly.
Dot our I's and cross our T's.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion for the language for food exemptions.
Jacob Mari, I move that we approve the language for food exemptions as written.
Christina Plord, second.
Okay, any discussion at this time for the motion for the food exemptions? If not, we will do a roll call vote. Any in favor can say aye, anyone can oppose, and anyone can abstain. Let's go to Griffin.
Aye.
Sophia?
Aye.
Dana?
Aye.
Plord?
Aye.
Jacob?
Aye.
Madhu?
Aye.
Rini?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well, therefore this passes unanimously for the motions of the language for food exemption as written on, this is KI. K1.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I'll do entertain a motion for the language for beverage exemptions.
Jacob Mari, I move to approve the language for beverage exemptions as written.
Christina Plord, second.
Any discussion on this one? Okay, we will do a roll call vote. Griffin?
Aye.
Sophia?
Aye.
Dana?
Aye.
Jacob?
Aye.
Madhu?
Aye.
Rini?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well, therefore this passes unanimously. And let's go to the motion language for beverage exemptions.
Ash, you forgot me.
Oh, did I? Oh, Lord.
Plord, aye.
Okay. Do you want to?
Read it in minutes.
I had my little participation thing and I had just moved it over and it covered your block. So sorry. Okay, so it is now unanimously passed for the motion language for the beverage exemptions. As once again, as stated in agenda item K1. And let's do the last one. I will entertain a motion for the language of, why are these both like beverage exemptions?
Um,
Whoa. Let's just list it on here twice.
Yeah, it's on there twice. I think you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did have a question mark on there, but that would be why I had a question mark on there.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No problem. Okay, so these two are set. So this is ready to go, Dr. Willett.
Okay.
Let's see here. At this time, let's do the public participation. Jacob will have the 2 minutes timer and he will let you know when there's 30 seconds. He will give you a visual and he will vocally let you know. If you could please state your name and address, and it must be comments geared toward what is on the agenda. So at this time, I'll open it up to the public. Okay, once again, like crickets. So sometimes when Tony's here, the crickets go. Let's do the Annalise.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi. So I'm just gonna say something, maybe off topic, but not really. So I just wanted to say that I just wanted to remind all Board of Ed members that they are here to represent and advocate for all children in our school system. That includes Black children, white children, biracial children, mixed children, and brown children. I saw something posted by a Board of Ed member that was disturbing and quite disgusting. It was awful. It really was. It was painful to see. It made me fearful that this person represents my children and other children in our community, makes choices for them. Sorry, it's hard. Makes choices for all the children in Tolland, right? I'm hoping that as we move forward and grow, members of the Board of Ed will think, act, and make decisions with love and compassion at the forefront, and thinking about all children, including Black children, especially Black children. I recognize and understand. I want them to recognize and understand that they are representing a diverse population. Even though we live in a town that is primarily white, we do have a population of minorities in our town. And they deserve to be thought about and to be felt for and to be heard. So when you post and when you say things and you put your opinions out there, I want you to remember that you are representing all children in our town, because that you have chosen to take this position, right, as an elected official on the Board of Education. So please remember that you don't just represent white children. So your thoughts and opinions need to include those minorities as well. I'm hurt right now about what I saw. So I hope that in the future that the board can come together and have discussions and to think twice about some things that are said, maybe outside of your meetings. Sorry. So I just I hope that the person who knows who posted what they posted, I hope that they know what they did, and I hope that they think twice and maybe at some point might have an apology for what they have done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Liz.
Hi, everyone. Thanks to everybody. And I too wish everybody has a wonderful vacation, including Dr. Willett and his entire staff for working so tirelessly for the last 9 months. So I want to say that, number one. Number two, I want to just ask Dr. Willett a quick question about coming back from vacation. Do we have to quarantine or not? And then number three, I just want to thank Dr. Willett, Mr. Poland, Mr. Zenzak, and probably all the administrators for comprising such a robust list of activities for the end of the year. And though it's not normal, it's something different. And I'm just going to suggest that you might want to start planning for Dunkin' Donuts Park, because I suspect that there will be a lot of undergrads that are going to look forward to going to Dunkin' Donuts Park in the future. So anyway, thank you very much for all of your effort. Thank you. Oh, 54 Josiah Lane. Sorry, Ashley.
I was just gonna say that, Liz.
I'm a rookie.
Thank you. At this time, is there any other members from the public who would like to speak? Going once, going twice. Okay. Let's go to points of information. At this point, I would welcome any board members who would like to speak to raise their hand. Flor?
Just quickly, I wanted to address what Miss Annalise Sir said. I'm not sure what was posted or where it was posted, or what or who you're even talking about. So if there's something out there that misrepresents the board, I urge you to email it in, and hopefully we could get it taken down. And that's really all I have to say to that.
Thank you, Plur. Anyone else? Let's go to Dana.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to reiterate what Christina Port said. Annalise, I can see it. I can, Miss Sear, I should say, I can hear it in your voice of obvious being taken aback and not feeling comfortable by someone who represents you. Again, I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but definitely please reach out, whether it be to the board or Dr. Willett or that respective board member. All of our emails are individually posted on the website, as well as the all board, which will also go to Dr. Willett. But yes, we all are here to represent all 17,000 or so residents in town, and all of our young adults and young students in our classrooms. So it's our roles to ensure that we're representing every single person. So, but we can't know, and we can't address it unless we know what it is. So I do hope that you open up the doors of communication to in whatever way you feel comfortable. And if tonight was that way, then I appreciate your communication. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dana. Let's go to Madhu.
Thank you. I just also, again, wanted to say, reiterate what everyone else said. I apologize that you feel this way. I apologize. We can definitely hear the pain in your voice. So please feel free to reach out in any way that you feel comfortable.
Okay. Thank you, Madhu. Obviously the emails are listed on the board, and like Dana had said, the all board is one to include all members, and including Dr. Willett, it goes to a form. And there's also individual emails as well on their Tolland website. So feel free to use those, and we will move on to
just one thing, Ms. Lunger, they had asked about travel, or Ms. Costa had asked about travel guidance. So I just wanted to.
With the quarantine, I have that here too.
Yeah, so I loaded it up on the screen for everybody just to see. This is the CDC and State of Connecticut advisory, and that is what we're under. Essentially, you can kind of read it. It's up on the it's in the superintendent's bulletin too, for people who need it. But they essentially say to stay home, and to when you get home from wherever you've gone, to quarantine for 7 days, even if your test is negative. That is the travel advisory. To quarantine for 7 days, even if your test is negative after returning home. This is an advisory, so if parent guardians do choose to send their children to school, we'd be monitoring them for any signs of illness and so on. But this is what the advisory says. So just so people know.
Thank you, Dr. Willett. Okay, so let's go to the future. And in terms of that, I think we're just kind of knocking off that list of the very long list of things to fit into our meetings. And, we'll continue to just chip away at that along with COVID. So I don't know if you want to add anything on that in terms of those items.
Yeah, no, we will keep chipping. And the next chip will be the pathways.
Pathways for May. So curriculum committee, you hear that? Pathways is up next. Okay, at this point, there is no new business and I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
You can tell a motion to adjourn at 9:19.
Dana Philbin, second.
Okay, and we will do the roll call. So once again, now my screen is all different. So Plord.
Aye.
All right.
Jacob.
Aye.
Madhu.
Aye.
Rini.
Aye.
Griffin.
Aye.
Sophia.
Aye.
Dana.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Therefore, we will adjourn at 9:19. Look at that. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night. And we will see everyone after break. Once again, stay safe, whatever you're doing.
Hi, guys.